Billy, I am happy to say that we do have some good things to talk about today. And I want to jump right into the question that I want to ask you and you watching at home. All things considered, and answer is, complicated as you need to, any ifs, ands, whatever you need to. But the question is simple. Do the Detroit Red Wings have what it takes to be a playoff team this year?
Man, it I want to follow your being as intricate as possible and kind of go down the same lineup we did in the video last week, right? But we're not going to do that. So I'm just going to keep it simple. I'm going to say yes. And it comes down to a couple things. Is that what we complained about last week with the Red Wings was a lack of motivation, a lack of spirit, a lack of driving on the ice. And I think we got that back. I think we got our captain back. We got Dylan Larkin back, and he's a captain. He might not be a superstar to the rest of the league. He's a superstar to us. He's exactly what we need. He sparks us up. And man, just seeing him be so happy on the ice after he scored in that first game back, the one camera angle is so perfect for it. But yeah, I think bringing in Edmondson was a bit of a shake up to the defenseman. I think that was necessary. I think we were able to look at every category player on the ice and say there were issues. And that leads to Alex Lyon, who just played possibly his greatest game of the year, and it still ended up being a loss. That's tough to give the goalie who's looking to jump out of a slump, but as long as he can keep his mental straight and understand how well he played that game, and Reimer's doing well. If we can get Reimer to have a few more of those games to keep the load off of Lyon, yeah, I think this team absolutely has it.
I don't think anybody can deny at this point that Dylan Larkin is your captain. Like there's no question that this guy motivates this team. You can just see it.
Mm-hmm.
You can just see the way the players are playing and the way there's an effort being put in. And, maybe this is a little bit of what we talked about where maybe the motivator hasn't been in the room. Like maybe Lalonde is more of a strategist and not a motivator.
Mm-hmm.
And if that speculation that we talked about is true and your biggest motivator, Dylan Larkin, has been out for that whole stretch, that, pretty much that whole slump that they just went through, to see the moment he comes back, to see that fight and to lose 1-0 in that game against Nashville, that's got to be one of the better feel-good losses I have seen in a few months with this team, where you watch it and you go, man, so much looked good. It probably has a little bit to do with you're comparing it to the immediate history, that, wow, this is looking way better than, this 5-6, whatever game stretch of losses. And I hope that this is something, that this is a spark that can turn into a run. You would love to see that Larkin coming back, pretty much the whole team being healthy. And you would really hope that someone like a Lyon can ride this spark as well. He looked phenomenal. When he finally got scored on, he was making 4 or 5 crazy saves in a row, and then one finally went in. So, to kind of answer the question with you, I think the team does have what it takes. I haven't steered away from that this year. My confidence has wavered up and down a little bit, but I still look at this team, and I think when Larkin is on this team, I can't count him out of any games. There's something about seeing the way they behave on the ice, the way they behave around him specifically as well. It feels like the guys have a little bit of I don't know. It's like a little bit of a spirit, a little bit of a hope that you can see, and it feels like they're fighting for something. And during that slump, when they're even down by just 1 goal, it looked defeated. It looked like the drop-in games that we talked about. They didn't look like a team. And you throw Larkin back out there, and I'm watching them go hold the puck in the Nashville zone for it feels like 2-3 straight minutes. I'm like, we're not even on the power play. Everything's kind of clicking. When they lose the puck, they're battling for it and retaining possession or preventing the puck from being dumped out. So I don't know if it really is just the motivation, the effort being there. It can't just be a coincidence. It just feels like the slump was too bad, and the team looks too good even in a loss, that Dylan Larkin being on this team is huge. And there is as the thumbnail shows, I believe in a Larkin effect. I mean, would you believe that there definitely is some sort of when he is there, maybe he could be that motivating guy in the locker room?
Oh, there's too much evidence to suggest otherwise. And I know that it's very typical for any hockey player on any team to talk nice about their captain and always talk them up whenever you go around the league in their intermissions. Hockey players are pretty standard. It's pretty much, just a beeline of going through all the cliches and everything. But Christian Fisher, I mean, he has a pretty famous interview out there right now with Trevor Thompson of talking about how much Larkin means. So there's too much evidence from the players and as well as the stat sheet and as well of just watching them that
Yep.
Dylan Larkin is insanely valuable to this team. And I was making a joke in our Discord that we're lucky that we signed Dylan Larkin like previously
When
and
we
not
did, yep.
moving forward. Because if we had to try to offer him a contract moving forward, maybe money isn't his driving thing. It's just a joke. But sometimes you're talking 9 mil plus for.
You are very fortunate that a guy that appears to be this important to your team grew up cheering for this team.
Yeah.
There had to be a mild hometown discount there, you would imagine. But his first game back, scoring 2 goals, like just being a part of, like immediately being a part of it, not having to be who knows. Again, I don't think we ever really got details. We talked about it barely talked about it in the last video. Was there a ton of details that came out? And it was just lower body, right? There was just kind of lower body going to be out a couple weeks. So who knows if they held him out longer, so he could come back and stay. And the moment he comes back, he immediately has an impact.
I believe it was on our local radio station that Lalone had an interview with, and when they were talking about things, they asked about Larkin and his timetable to come back, and Lalone kind of said the opposite. Lalone kind of pushed absolutely we're getting into the crunch time, like Larkin is, still not doing too hot, but we might have to get aggressive on that Thursday night game and bring him back because we're counting games. So I think that they probably brought him back earlier than they would have liked, but it just shows that, he's a special player, even being brought back early.
You wouldn't know it just from watching. Like you go out, you go out and watch it, and
it's just credit to him.
There was
really
no part of him. Yeah, there was no part of him that looked like it was holding back even in the slightest. So that could just speak to him and his character and his heart. I'm a firm believer. Make that a second question. Do you believe in the Larkin effect? I am absolutely. I believe him just being out there and being with the team, even just being in that locker room, that is clearly a difference maker. That's their leader. Clearly, that is everybody on this team's captain, because it's not even close.
Yep.
It's not even the close when he's not there.
And I mean, maybe this is going to be a little negative, maybe, but like we have a lot of veterans in that room, and there is a level of concern that there's no one that could spark the boys as well as he did in that time period during that slump, where it kind of felt like guys were probably looking around the locker room for the one to be the one to spark them up. The fact that we couldn't is a little weird. But we're here now, and you don't have to think about that anymore. As long as Larkin doesn't get injured again,
you can think of it both ways. You could think of it as it's a little weird that another veteran couldn't have stepped up and done that, or Larkin could be. You never know. In the locker room, he could be that special.
Yeah.
You use a phrase like, "Oh, it's like, oh, he could be that special," but I'm sure someone would be like, "Oh, he's not like a superstar, though. He's not. You don't have to be to be a superstar in the locker room. That's meaningful, and it gets everybody going." Clearly, because it's not even close. It's not even close to even in a 1-0 loss. I would take that 1-0 loss over any performance we saw during the slump.
Yes.
And I guess that kind of leads into like the secondary question is him returning? Is that enough to feel like we're kind of getting out of that slump? Even with a 1-0 loss, does it feel like we are at least, the slump doesn't have to mean are we going to start winning all of our games or whatever, but it doesn't look like it was this. We didn't lose for the same reasons that we lost. We went up against a brick wall.
Yep.
Saros is fantastic, and their defense played fantastic. But offensively, while we couldn't score, there were so many times where I was like, I like this. It sucks we're not scoring, but I'm really liking how they're moving the puck. I like how our defense is stepping up at the blue line successfully and not just letting the puck get chipped around them. And it felt like if we played almost any other team that night, it was a win. But Nashville was just hot. They were just also having a great night.
Yeah. I mean, they have some ridiculous record right now of like 16 games of getting a
Yep.
point. And I think they're like 14-0-2 during that
Yep.
time. What we just experienced as Red Wings fans, it feels like it's the classic, typical Predators way of not having that offense show up too well, but really leaning in on their defense and goaltending. And we felt that, and we felt that before with other teams like the Panthers, who kind of get away with the same thing of just playing really strong defensively. But to your question of, do I think like this slump is over? Well, first things first, it has to. Like we've talked about this for a week now of you have to start getting points. And we have. And this last week, we've been getting points in some games. And yeah, of course, we wish that we would get, a couple more here or there to better pad our stats here. But I mean, I'm sure we can bring up the current standings showing the Wings, Capitals, Islanders, Lightning, and Flyers kind of fighting for those 3 playoff spots. So you have 5 teams fighting for 3 spots, one of them that the Wings can't get. We're going to put the bottom of the Metro, their 3rd position, up for grabs between the Caps and the Flyers. I don't think anyone else is really in the discussion below them or above them to fall out of it. So, I mean, games remaining, we're kind of just in the middle. In points, we're kind of just in the middle again. It feels like we've got a decent opportunity here, and something that Josh and I did was go through and start trying to put some W's and L's. We understand that we're not going to hit 100% on these. If we did, we would honestly leave these games and we'd go on FanDuel and we'd go become millionaires if we were this good at it. But we're just guessing. We're guessing as good as anyone else can. And the way that we have the season finishing out for each one of these teams would be the Wings going 7-4-1, which is our standard. That is like through all of our highs, all of our lows through the season. It feels like if you could guess 7-4-1, you're winning a little more than you're losing, especially with some of the teams that we have coming up, where it feels like some should be easy W's and some should be pretty easy L's when it comes to, Canes, Panthers, Rangers, Lightning in a matter of 4 games. Like, those are going to be tough. Yeah, you're going to lose some of those games. That doesn't mean your season's over. So we got us coming out with 15. The Caps going 5-6-1 for 11. Isles going 6-5 for 12. The Bolts going 8-3-1 for 17. And the Flyers going 5-4-1 for 11. Ultimately, what that means for the playoffs is that the Flyers are in their division. The Bolts and the Wings are the 2 wild cards, and the Caps and the Isles miss. Now, that might be a little wishful thinking from us to go 7-4-1 and for the Caps to suddenly go cold. But I promise you, if you start looking at some of the teams that they have to play through this, like, difficulty of schedule matters. And I know that was heavily in our favor 2-3 weeks ago. I think the stats were coming out. We had like the easiest remaining schedule. Well, we also lost Dylan Larkin. We already talked about the Larkin effect. So
This team cannot afford to lose Larkin again.
yes,
It feels dramatic to say so, but like if Larkin goes down and it's for any meaningful amount of time, you could probably write the season off, because this team hasn't shown that they can do a ton without the guy, which is concerning. That is a massive concern, especially when you're talking about a guy who has, at this point, he's got an injury history. Like, at this point, he's developed, he's got a bit of a history of when he gets hurt. It's not usually just for the rest of the game. We'll see him, we'll see him Monday. It's usually he finds himself missing a few games, which this team seems to really struggle without this guy. And, while we're not going to go through all the games, all the predictions, because frankly, the predictions game by game don't, obviously we're not going to get those right. It's really more of you can get a solid estimate, like Billy was saying, of how many games you can expect to be competitive in and potentially win. I like to think that we do have a team that might steal one against a Canes or a Lightning, and not saying we're going to go out and go win 5-1, but we've seen what the team can do earlier in the season against a team like Boston. Continually, like not just once, they would go out and play these high-end teams really competitively. And this is the kind of team where if it's a 1-goal game, I believe in this team. They have a shot.
Yep.
Like I doesn't feel like, it's like when Nashville scored that goal with 5 minutes left, it hurt, but I didn't feel like we were out of it, because we were playing so well that they could squeak one out. And they did have a great empty net effort. Like that was a really good effort of keeping, we had the goalie pulled for like 2.5 minutes and managed to not give up the empty netter because you were retaining such pressure that to the point where the Predators had to keep dumping and icing it and couldn't get a change. Like the pressure was there. I really would like to think we could steal one from one of those because I think if we only win the games that we should win, we're going to end up slipping and not winning one of those games that we should win because we've seen how this team can do against teams that they should beat. I don't want to go all the way back to the Sharks. I don't want to look back to the Coyotes here, but like I'm sure we all had a lot of games circled as dub, and let's already focus on the next game, and we lost all those games. So as much as I am nervous, I do think that this team could pull it off and take that second wildcard spot. And right now, I mean, obviously the stats could change. If we miss the playoffs, we would be the only team to miss the playoffs in the entire NHL with a positive goal differential if that stays that way. So let's not do that. Let's not be that anomaly. Let's end the playoff drought. And I think you could. My prediction hasn't changed. I thought they'd make the playoffs since the beginning of the year. My hopes were really high about a month and a half ago. I was feeling like we were targeting a top 3 spot at that point. Obviously, that had to change. I'm still in it. I think we're going to squeeze one out, and then, give me Boston.
Oh my gosh.
We've already, if there's any team that we've shown throughout the regular season that I want to play that's going to be up there, I'll take them over the Rangers right now. Because we've shown that we can beat Boston.
That's fair. I know that in our last video, I told people to go watch a Rangers power play and see how deadly a thing is. I don't want to face that. I don't want to face a team that's good
happily
all
put
across
me in a
the board.
7-game series against Boston, rather than the Rangers, given the history this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that I want to talk about with games coming up for the Wings is that you can kind of look at 2 of those games in the next 11 are against the Caps. Quite literally, those are like 4-point games because if you can get 2 and take 2 off their schedule, like you have 8 points up on the board between you and the team that we have is the closest chasing team in our predictions coming up. And I think that we're built to beat the Caps. I think what the Caps are great at versus what the Red Wings are great at, I take the Red Wings. Like Ovi's on fire. You can't let them go on the power play right now. I think that their top line can be extremely deadly and something that they can probably take advantage of with our overall team, let's say. But when it comes to their depth, again, versus our depth, I'm taking ours 10 out of 10 times. You look down that lineup and you start seeing some names over on their team and you're like, who? That's who they have on their 4th line. You get the Toronto Maple Leaf effect.
I do love our team's depth.
Yes. So as soon as you start seeing, Robbie Favre, Joe Veleno, and Daniel Sprong are going up against who? Okay, yeah. I mean, I trust they can score a goal in that game. I'll trust they score 1 goal within those 2 games.
What's the line that's been scoring a lot lately? Was it like Kopp and I had something up. I don't have it anymore. There's a line on the Wings that's been getting a lot of points, so I can't remember.
Kopp, Fisher, and
yeah, and because it was Fisher scoring a lot, and then Kopp got a couple goals the other night.
So again,
he scored 2. Yeah, in that game, the Islanders game. So Larkin's first game back, Larkin scores 2 goals, and then that line with Kopp and Fisher, Kopp scores 2 goals, Fisher gets a goal and 2 assists. So
yes.
I like the depth. I like our 3 and 4 line.
Yep, and that's what I think really separates us from across the rest of the NHL. And it's what we talked about going into the season of why, if this team's going to be successful, why is it? It's them. It's having an Andrew Kopp on a 3rd line who would likely be a 2nd line center on any other team. And then you have Compher as your number 2 center who could be a number 1 center on some teams. And you have Dylan Larkin who's your number 1 center. Like our depth is great. If our goaltenders can continue to slowly work themselves back up, Edvinsson, I think, either lit a fire under some people around him on, I don't want to be the one scratched kind of deal. I don't want to be the demon who's out of the loop now.
No one wants to be Sprong right now. Sprong's issue is his greatest. If you have a great strength, awesome. But the second you can't do the strength, what do you bring to the table anymore? That's why you're going to get scratched. Sprong's supposed to be the guy he's going to shoot great scoring opportunity. He was someone we were excited about after we signed him. Like, I should say, we signed him, we looked into him, and then we got excited when we saw what we thought Steve was seeing. But he's not scoring. He's not putting the puck in there. He's not creating offense, and that's the, defensively, it's kind of a liability. So, of course, he's going to find himself getting scratched. Who's taking the spot? I believe it was Jarnik, and he's not putting a bunch of points, but the dude's playing defensively. Like, I remember I'm watching out there. He's playing physically. I like it.
He's got heart.
So
there's no doubt. Like, you can tell
that dude's playing to keep his spot. He wants that spot.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I'm looking at those games, those are the ones that I think you have to have like highlighted the brightest red. Like, I think every game's highlighted right at this point, but for the one, maybe you got a star next to this one specifically.
The most important game is the next game for the next few weeks.
But like, specifically looking at those caps, ones to take points away from a team chasing you and just separate yourself away from them even more. Those are 4-point games that you can look at. So that's what we've got next. I think we match up well against them. And I think we got the Red Wings making the playoffs, Josh. 11 games is where we wanted to be.
And just looking back, beginning of the season, what was the dream?
Be here.
To play meaningful hockey games in the final weeks of the season. This is exactly where we wanted to be, guys. So as stressful as you might be, enjoy it, because you're watching hockey games that matter with the Detroit Red Wings again, and it's good to be back.
You're playing playoff teams going into the playoffs.
All right, video's over. For the most part, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe and stick around. One thing I want to talk about really quick. We'll leave this in, but I haven't been able to, obviously because I've been busy, haven't really been able to come up with a way to make this like a video. So we'll just squeeze this in here. Maybe if more develops on it, we'll make a video on it. But did you see the clip of the PWHL game at Little Caesars?
No.
You haven't seen the Taylor Swift clip?
Oh, that one. Yes.
So that was cool to see that many young women and girls go into this game to the point where you play half of a Taylor Swift song, just like the bridge, and they go off and they sing the next minute and a half of it. That going viral, and the the US attendance record being broken. I was not able to go. I know I wanted to go. Was not able to do pretty much anything last month. But shout out to any of you who may be watching who went, or shout out if you know anyone who went, because that very well could have been enough to be remembered when they're talking about expansions. And we want more hockey around here. We'd love to get it whenever they expand. So I think when they do expand, I think you can expect Detroit to be near the top of the list of those options. Yeah. And so shout out to anyone who did that. That was cool. I'd love to get if we got a PWHL team, I think that'd be sick to get another local hockey team to root for that's actually in driving distance. So
yeah, you're gonna have to start up a new podcast for them too.
I mean, I think we could just do it on this one.
Yeah.
Probably.
A good chance.
Yeah.
Doodles.